to get here. There's really a whole, as I was waiting at Penn Station to come here, so I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the Saturday night energy, here in the Big Apple. And in point of fact, Rabbi Nachman has a lesson in Likutei Moharan why it's so difficult to fall asleep on Motzei Shabbat, which is a universal phenomenon and not something new. Right? And one of the reasons, he says, because the Gemara says that Eliyahu Navi will not come Erev Shabbos or Shabbos to announce the coming of Mashiach. So the first time that Eliyahu Navi can again come is Motzei Shabbat, right? And what we're hearing is the Ikvot Mashiach, the footsteps of Mashiach. And those footsteps are part of what keeps us up on Saturday night, on Motzei Shabbat. Right? That's one reason. And the other reason, which relates more to what's going on in the wide world around us, is the fact that there's a certain, with the beginning of the new week, there's also a new expression, a new revelation of Da'at, of awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? This week, the Parashat Toldot, Tavshin Ayin, right, has never happened before, and a certain awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be available now that's never been available before. And it starts tonight. And just as at the beginning of creation, right, we know first it was Tohu Vavohu, it was all wild and waste and totally confused. And so as we focus the Da'at, as we try to get focused on the Da'at the Kedusha, so that's why we have to have this big awareness, this availability of Da'at, and it will become Tohu Vavohu, the way it's being expressed, let's say at Madison Square Garden and other venues, or it will be more focused and come Da'at the Kedusha, as it is here, and certainly many other places in New York. But anyway, that's all something I was thinking about while waiting for the taxi from the station. It's a very well-known and universal Hasidic minhag, it's a custom, not that to tell Hasidic Shemaisis, to tell stories of tzaddikim on Motzei Shabbat, right? And Reb Nachman gives a lesson and tells us, the value, what's the purpose, what's the point of telling a Hasidic story, and also some of what it takes, what's necessary to tell a story so that it's effective. Right? A simple, and this the Rebbe doesn't talk about in the lesson on Likutei Moharan, but he does mention it elsewhere. One of the most simple and important reasons to tell Hasidic stories, or stories of any sort of tzaddikim, right? And there is such a thing as Litvish Maisis about tzaddikim, right? And so we shouldn't be prejudiced, but we'll just call them all Hasidic Maisis. But in a certain way, it's just very much a fact of, these are our heroes, right? People can look up to athletes, they can look up to actors, Rahman al-Islam, may God save us, or politicians, right? And it's a real danger. I mean, a lot of people think that this politician or this actor is a real, and many of those people don't have any understanding of the role that they play, and even of those that do, which is certainly better, even so, these are not role models for children, and also not role models for adults. But tzaddikim, right, those who have worked hard in the present, or those of the past who worked throughout their entire lives to become more refined and to become more aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their own lives, and to transmit not only that awareness, but the ability to become aware to us, right? So these are the people who really should be our heroes. So in a very simple way, hearing, reading, and telling stories about tzaddikim is a way to bolster our own emunah in the tzaddikim, and of course the point of that being to have more emunah in Hashem Yisborach Himself. Because if that's our hero, and that's our role model, then we'll strive to be like him or her as well. But there's more to telling. There's more that can be had from Hasidic stories. Rabbi Nachman says that from a Hasidic Shemaisa, a person can come to Taharas HaMachshava, to pure and clearer thinking. Right. The Rebbe says, Rabbi Nachman says, in Likutei Moharan, it's very difficult to be in this world. Right? We know we're still holding early in Sefer Bereshis, and so we still remember that the story of the Malachim, the various angels who, for whatever reason, got exiled from Shemayim, they got sent out of heaven, and they came to our planet, right? And when they came here, they failed miserably. They were distracted by whatever they were distracted by, and they committed multiple acts of immorality. Right? And the Rebbe says that to live in this world is something very, very difficult. It's hard to pass through this world unscathed. Right? If you're expecting to be perfect in your Yahadut, in your Jewishness, that you'll never do any Aveira, and you'll never, and you'll always do every mitzvah that comes your way, and you'll be, without any anger and without any greed, you're fooling yourself. It's impossible. Well nigh impossible. Right? But there are certain things we can do to help ourselves. Right? Certain things we can do to get our minds cleaner and clearer. And one of them is telling a Hasidic Shemaisa. So I want to tell at least two stories. One is very brief, and I tell it because since it's so brief, you'll be able to remember it and take it home with you. Right? And it's always good to have a Hasidic Shemaisa in your pocket, because you never know when you'll be able to share it with somebody in a minute and a half. The story is like this, and this is a story you'll find it in the Shivchei of Baal Shem Tov, the praises of Baal Shem Tov. There was a certain village in either Ukraine, wherever it was, and they had a Sefer Torah, and it always had mistakes. They would read the Sefer Torah Shabbos, Monday, Thursday, and they would see a mistake, and during the week they would have the Sofer fix the Sefer Torah, and then the next time they would read from the Sefer Torah, they would find another mistake. But if they fix that one, they would read it and find another mistake. And it was constantly like this. So they didn't know what to do, and they found out. They heard that the Baal Shem Tov was going to be passing by their village. So they said, you know what? When the Baal Shem Tov comes here, we'll ask him. The Baal Shem Tov. There are a number of stories like this in the Shivchei of Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, among his other abilities, was the ability to see I'll use the word, I'm not actually sure if it's appropriate, if it's accurate. He would see the aura around objects. And from that, he would be able to know what the source, where the particular thing came from, and what its standing was in spirituality. So the Baal Shem Tov came to the town, and they told him about the Sefer Torah, and they brought it to him and showed it to him. The Baal Shem Tov Kodesh said, this Sefer Torah will never be kosher. Amazing thing, just from looking at it. Right? So they said, Rebbe, why not? What's the story with the Sefer Torah that will never be kosher? So the Baal Shem Tov explained to them, what's the origin of the Sefer Torah? There was a Jew who had an inn. That was fairly common back then. And he had a meeting room, a meeting hall, which he would rent out to some of the local non-Jews for their weekly card game. He didn't play, but he rented the room. And the money that he took for the rent from that room, he saved up, and with that he commissioned the writing of the Sefer Torah. And because the money for that Sefer Torah came